Well, as I said, we're going to talk about Raw. And I understand you watched Raw.
Oh,
You told me there were things you wanted to see. I watched all of Raw. You watched portions
you
of
watched
Raw.
all of Raw?
Well, when I say all of Raw, I watched it after it was over so I could fast forward through parts. And there were certain matches I may have fast forwarded through for the most part.
All
But I
right,
saw
all
all
right.
the speeches.
The speechifying. Well, no, this was a big week for it because, and to be honest, I think it's 2 weeks now that we have foregone the Raw experience because it seems like that life is so short and you're spending most of it trying to watch that program. So we skipped a couple of weeks, but last week or this past Monday night, it was November 13th, whenever you're listening to this. But nevertheless, the program was very instrumental in the furthering of not only the War Games match at Survivor Series, but also in the historic and the Judgment Day. So we had to watch because the happenings, not the matches. Now the happenings are what's driving this gravy train that they're running right now. Do you remember the old gravy train dog food commercials?
I do not.
Where when I was a kid, they had the gravy train where the horse driven chuck wagon with the red and white checkerboard would be, there the dog would be sleeping on the floor in the kitchen, right? And suddenly you'd hear the crack of the whip and the horse's footsteps, and then you'd see the gravy train from Checkerboard Square. The horse and wagon would come through the kitchen floor, and the dog would jump up and chase it, and then the horse and wagon would go right through the cabinet of the kitchen, right through the cabinet door and into the kitchen cabinet where the dog couldn't get to it. And then its owner had to come and open the door and get the gravy train out. And you know why they called it gravy train, Brian?
Was it the gravy?
It was when you put the food in the dish and you poured hot water on it, it made the gravy for the little hounds. And this was state-of-the-art dog food back then. Gravy train. Loved those commercials because I was always thinking the dog should smarten up and get in front of the goddamn wagon before it got to the cabinet and went through the door.
We're talking about Raw, I believe.
Well, speaking about state-of-the-art dog food, so they did a VTR package of last week, and actually, I felt a twang of heartache that I didn't watch the main event last week because it was Seth Franklin Rollins against Sami Zayn and their old Ring of Honor cohorts, and they looked like they had a heck of a match. They were going all out. But Seth beat Sami, and then the Judgment Day attacked Sami, and Seth helped him, and then so did Jey Uso, and so did Cody Rhodes, and Adam Pearce came out and announced with bug eyes and a raised voice, War Games for Survivor Series. And it looked like a heck of a little match and angle there. I wish it had been on SmackDown, so it would have been on a program that hasn't bored us out of keeping up with it yet. But nevertheless. So then here comes Cody. And a big entrance, and he's over. And he mentioned that tonight he and Jey Uso are going to win the tag team title, and then he plugged the War Games is coming to Survivor Series and introduced his team. And he introduced Jey Uso. We got Jey Uso music entrance and Sami Zayn music entrance. And then Dancing Seth Rollins music entrance. And then long singing of ho, ho, ho from the fans. And by the time they actually started this interview, it was 12 minutes into the program. And Cody spoke for 30 seconds. And that was mainly I can count on Jay and I can count on Sami, but can I count on you to Seth? And they were staring at each other. And then the Judgment Day music played and they made their entrance. And I was like, God damn it. We are 15 minutes into this program. There's barely been a word spoken, right? But finally we get into it. Because now JD Funko is now in the Judgment Day, but Rhea Ripley didn't come out with them for this. It was just all the guys.
Well, it wasn't official at this point. He came out with them, but he wasn't in the Judgment Day.
That's right. He came out with them, but then he's not official yet. But he came out with them. And he's going to be official later on. Sorry, I jumped the gun. Hope I didn't spoil anything for anybody. But Priest says, hey, the Judgment Day is family and you're a bunch of random people thrown together. And so we're going to win more games. And I wish they wouldn't let Finn speak because he's just so, it's so high-pitched and so whiny with the accent and everything. Priest sounds like James Earl Jones next to everybody else in his company. But this went kind of slow also. They were talking to each other for a little while. And they did the thing where they booed Dominic, but then the fans started chanting, fuck you, fuck you. And finally, Sammy jumped in and actually moved this along. He cut a fucking heck of a promo. He fired up the people. He laid out the goddamn babyface's fucking thought process and got him into it, right? Thankfully, somebody saved the fucking day. And then Cody says, well, where's Mommy, the leader of the... And Priest says, there is no leader of the Judgment Day. And then Cody does the thing where he finally goads Priest into saying that he's the leader of the Judgment Day. And then suddenly Seth jumped in and said, I'm ready for a fight. How about JD and Dominic against Seth and Sammy right here, right now? And Priest, since he's now claimed he's the leader, he accepted for it. And we were 20 minutes into the fucking program. I like what they do. I just wish they could do it quicker. Your thoughts?
I mean, it took a while, but the people there seemed happy and into it. They needed to do something to set up why all these people are on the same team. It was more just, here's my team, and then it kind of had to fall together throughout the rest of the show.
Well, no, they did it, to be fair, because then people are going to say this, so I want to save you some ass chewing on the internet. They set up a lot of it last week we didn't watch, so I wasn't concerned as much about that.
They set up Cody picking Seth last week?
Well, because they were all involved. He did fight on their behalf in that instance.
Yeah, I didn't watch last week either.
Well, that's why I'm telling you, don't bury yourself. You've already goddamn made us guilty of fucking either plagiarism or some kind of goddamn misrepresentation.
Well, I want the joy to continue, but it must come to a stop. We were in the middle of a Raw review when we were attacked by the PWI Awards. Let's go back to the remainder of the Raw review.
Boy, yeah, we got off sideways, didn't we? So we're back to Raw on, what the fuck day was it? November 13th, a red letter day in anybody's catalog. And we just seen the opening 20-minute segment of long speechifying. And then we got to the first match, which was Seth and Sami Zayn against Dominic and JD Funko. And of course, we're talking about, through this whole program, the Babyfaces war with Judgment Day, because we're going to get a big surprise here in a couple minutes. And of course, since this was a match, I zipped through it to see the next development in the angle. But at one point, I don't know whether was this a night off for everybody as far as mentally was something going on, because I saw a couple strange things. Dominic gave Seth 2 suplexes in a row, and then they stood up and he went for a third one, and Seth just picked him up and just dropped him flat of his back and turned around and just flat-footed cold tagged Sami Zayn to no pop whatsoever. Like, fuck, here, you do it. But anyway, finally they do the finish. Seth super kicks Dominic and gives him a buckle bomb, and there's Finn and Priest, and they just jerk Seth out to the floor, DQ, ding, ding. Heat on Seth. Cody and Jay come out to help, and they have a big fight on the floor with the agents, the referee, and security, which was the best part of... Actually, it was the most exciting part of the show at that point, because that was the first match, and it was the most exciting part of that, and we were 40 minutes into this thing. But they had a big pull apart in the ring and on the floor, and then Adam Pearce, who I'm loving, is fucking just putting his foot down.
And Raw has done to him what it does to the rest of us.
Yes, it made him crazy.
That's right.
Driven him out of his fucking mind. He says, fuck it, all the seconds are barred from the arena for the tag team title match tonight. Nobody's going to be interfering in that one. And then Rhea comes out, and she's getting all over him, and we go to the break. And when we come back, because everybody knows the only thing that people are watching this for is more developments with the Judgment Day, Rhea is still in the ring arguing with Adam Pearce. and she's pissed about everybody being booted from the building, and Pierce is telling her off. And then Zoe Stark's music interrupts. And I'm, oh, Jesus. So, Brian, I don't know. I don't even know if you watched any of this at all. Rhea was in it. But boy, she started talking, and she's still not comfortable with promos yet or whatever, because the crowd started whatting her. And it's just, it's like the average girl's promo. They just kind of drone the memorized shit. But when Rhea responded, they don't what her because they listen to her. She's the best female promo in the business and is probably top 10 of both male and female. With delivery, emotion, the voice, the fire when needed, the inflections.
Even when delivering bullshit that's been written, she delivers it well.
Yes. You know, ahead of the rest of the pack. So anyway, but they argued for a minute. Arguing may be too strong of a term. And then Rhea went to jump her and she ducked, and Rhea just went over the top rope to the floor and walked out. So that, you know, here we go. In the back, Cody Rhodes asked for a moment with Seth Rollins, confidentially between them, right in front of the television camera. And Cody's pitch is he needs Seth for one night at War Games. You don't have to like me. We don't have to get along, just one time to, you know, get even with the bloodline. And Seth respects him even if he doesn't like him, so he very slowly and wordily agrees to that they're good for War Games. Nobody can just make a fucking point and just hit the nail on the head. And then we went through a bunch of other stuff. Well, Shaky and Otis had a match, and then Seth sees Drew McIntyre in the back. And Drew has wanted to give him something since last Saturday at Crown Jewel and offered Seth his hand. And Seth took it. And then Drew said he's still going to get a rematch, and Seth kind of patted him on the shoulder and said, I know you will, big man, or something like that, kind of condescendingly. And off they go.
Give them credit. They've kind of made Drew interesting.
Well, yes. And that was a nice little MacGuffin, as Hitchcock used to say, that they had the little handshake there and everything. But that's, again, they shoehorned in a couple of these pesky matches. We had Piper and Tegan and Ciampa and Kaiser Wilhelm.
But I think that was an important segment. You know, it used to, as a fan, sometimes drive me crazy, especially with WWF, even though it happened everywhere, but WWF especially, like Survivor Series 87. Randy Savage is on the same team with Ricky Steamboat, who he had just crushed the larynx of less than a year earlier. You know, different guys who had blood feuds on the same team all of a sudden with nothing said. I like the fact that at least they're addressing the fact that these two did have a big feud when Cody first came in, and he won. And I thought I thought this was a necessary segment, and it was good, even though, you know, you hate the invisible camera, but otherwise it was good.
Well, and that's something that Vince used to, don't worry about it, pal. Either they won't remember, they won't think about it, they won't care, whatever. It was something, well, for example, when Jerry Lawler turned babyface in 77 after his record-setting run with Bill Dundee, they didn't team up for a little while. It was an awkward, transition. And then the same thing with Jimmy Valiant when he had that long program with Lawler, but he turned babyface. And then to get a picture of them, all three together, was bizarre. We sold the shit out of that because they'd never been in the same place, all three of them at the same time on the same side. But with weekly television and weekly territories, there was more time to flesh that out too. And whereas Vince just wanted to go to the next big show and didn't sometimes want to close those things up unless it was at the very top. But anyway, the next dramatic reading was Rhea in the back with the Judgment Day. And she's obviously giving instructions and, tasks for them to, focus on the tag team title match tonight. And then she referred to Priest as their fearless leader. But then she told him that he was in charge of War Games since he'd already been speaking about it and everything. And then they all told Priest, well, she told Priest on behalf of everybody, that they're going to let J.D. Funko into Judgment Day. He took another bullet for him, and he's done this and that. And so Priest takes it on himself to go find J.D. and tell him about it. And then they had another fucking match. Xia Li and Indy Hartwell. Who gives a shit?
I like Xia Li. I gave a shit.
Oh, come on.
I like Xia Li. I think she's good.
Did she win?
She won, and then she had a confrontation with Becky Lynch. They're going to have a big match next week.
Good for her. And then Miz wrestled Ivar the Viking.
Did they do the? Forgive me, because I don't remember. Did they do the Miz backstage segment before this or after this? Did you not see it, or was it after this?
I think I probably skipped through it because it was the Miz. Is he at the Judgment Day?
No, they had Gunther and the Miz confrontation backstage where Gunther.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, where Gunther was kind of talking down to him, but I think they're doing a really good job of setting him up for a match with Gunther.
That's what scares the shit out of me.
He's been good. You don't even remember. You've said you've enjoyed him for things this year.
Yes,
this year.
But now he's going to be a babyface. That's going to be even worse.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Anyway, and also I'm scared to death they'll have him beat Gunther.
No way. They can't.
All right, so anyway, they did a War Games package and gave the rules of this thing. Imagine that. And they're using Ozzy's War Pigs again as the official theme of the event. And so they came out of that, and in the back, again, nothing good happens in the ring. Priest tells JD that he annoys him, but he helped him. He took one for the team, blah, blah, blah. So he got the Judgment Day jacket or vest or whatever that fucking thing is. And he's official. And at 10:25 Eastern Standard Time, the first babyface, Cody Rhodes, began his entrance for the main event tag team title match. And after the rest of the entrances and a break and the plugs and more entrances and the introductions, they only took 10 minutes to ring the bell on the main event this week. But finally, we get to see what's going to happen. Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso for the tag team title against Priest and Finn Balor. And what did you think of this match, Brian? Well, go ahead. Before I tell you what I thought, what did you think?
I don't think very much of a lot of these matches on SmackDown or Raw just because of the way they're cut up and everything with the commercials, but it was an okay match. It was all right.
It's
all about the story. It's WWE's. It's all about the story. You'll watch the match to tolerate what's going to come next.
Well, yeah, and Cody does try to take him a bit more up and down, on a little ride than most people do with his matches. But again, this was kind of punch and kick match. Neither team does a lot of teamwork. They're not. Well, Priest and Finn should be a team. Cody and Jey are brand new, but. It's just all about out of nowhere doing a spot for the break. They had cut Jey off at the start, and then at one point, Cody and Priest just jumped in and started fighting in a four-way for no reason, and they went to the floor, and they went to the break. And then when they come back, they're still getting heat on Jey. But Jey just pushed Finn into the corner so Cody could tag in, and then they stopped him and got heat on him. And then he actually did hot tag Jey. And he made a comeback, and I don't know whose punches are getting more see-through now, Jey Uso or Damian Priest. Because Priest is doing this fancy little twist when he throws it and making a big motion and the slap, and you can tell it's awkward. It's not, I don't understand why it's so difficult for guys to throw punches these days. They can do everything else. But it's like they're scared of fucking potatoing somebody, but they'll go through a table off a fucking diving platform with him and think nothing of it. And then they stopped Jay again and threw him over the desk, and they went to the break. And then they came back, and he made an abrupt tag to Cody, but people popped because it was Cody. And he made a comeback, and then Jay tagged himself back in, and they did some false finishes. And again, they finally open up the last couple minutes where Jay dives on everybody, and suddenly he's on the floor. He looks around, and he sees Drew McIntyre. And Drew just gives him the Claymore kick, boom, rolls him in and walks off. And Finn covers him 1, 2, 3. And then Drew is staring ominously at the baby faces from the entranceway, and Rhea Ripley walks out, and they get the big handshake. So now we know where Drew's sympathies lay, but that was, 10 minutes of entrances and 20 minutes of just kind of, okay, they didn't do anything wrong, but it was just, to get there. That's what I saw.
Again, it's all about the big angles, and I think WWE's done a fairly good job of, with this establishing who the top baby faces are and the top heels are. In AEW, if there's like anything with a faction versus another faction, it's main event people, the rest of the show will just be other things happening. There wasn't that much on this show, and it really didn't seem that bothersome because the things that were there were all furthering the biggest storyline there is.
Yeah.
Leading into the War Games.
And that's what they continue to do, to draw billions of dollars by boring us to death most of the time, so that when the 5 people that we're really interested in do something, it stands out. But you mentioned there is a pecking order in the WWE, and you can tell what it is, like every other wrestling company and territory since the beginning of time, except in AEW, where one of these off-brand indie nitwits that gets signed because he's friends with somebody can be the opening match one week and the main event the next week, and they don't think there's anything wrong with that, which is why that they're in the shape they're in right now, because they don't think there's anything wrong with a lot of shit.
And they've now also established with Judgment Day a couple interesting things. One was Priest demanding, or not demanding, but in a commanding way saying he's the leader of Judgment Day earlier in the night.
Blurting it out.
And it got a reaction from not just the other members, but the audience obviously oohed at that.
Yeah.
And now this is the second time we've seen Rhea make a deal, right? Didn't her and Heyman have a deal on SmackDown at some point, or was it on Raw?
Yes, one of those things.
So Rhea, the deal maker, doing business on behalf, I guess, on behalf of Judgment Day, but who knows?
You know what she's going to say? Not only is mommy always on top, but you're going to have to deal with the dealer.
We'll see if she says that.
I should have had D-Lo say that. You're going to have to deal with D-Lo. Maybe not.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
It's AEW.
Did you have him say anything else?
He was quite the talker once he got started.
But there wasn't really a catchphrase or something, was there?
Well, no. Well, he did later on, but I didn't tell him.
You had him, I'm saying.
Well, no. We didn't do catchphrases in the wrestling business. We just did promos. Now you do catchphrases.
Well, that was Raw, and you caught it, indeed, the catchphrase that is Raw.
And I threw it back because it was undersized and not fully grown. I was afraid I'd get cited by the game warden.